From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Well, hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. I am Keith Allen, and proudly welcoming you to this Thursday's edition of For the People on September the 28th, 2017. Some of you cannot believe they're saying, but I thought Keith Allen, but I thought I did too. If you didn't join us for our first hour, some stations carry, 1 hour or 2 hours. But anyways, we were trying to stay on the air. We're trying to do it listener supported. And we started out doing memberships and all that 3 years ago. And we just were not able to really pay all our bills to do the broadcast. And so our business model obviously has to change. And I got a phone call from a guy who sells products, knows stuff about products. And he said, you need to start doing that. Your show is terrific. Stations, are signing on. You can't just give it up. And one of the deciding factors of wanting to actually to sign off, it wasn't for that I didn't love it or stations didn't believe that I had the right stuff to be on the air. It's just I didn't have the money to do it, and I felt obligated because here it is, my wife, she works full time. She loves to work, but she's got debilitating fibromyalgia, and I thought, well, I could be there to help her a little bit more. I have a child that lives home, and we have two daughters that have moved out, and they have kids of their own, and so we're grandpa and grandma. And anyway, over a handful of people in the last 2-3 days, literally, and this never happens hardly at all, where people said, you should be on the radio. Why aren't you doing a radio show? These people didn't know me, and it just... And then I get this call out of nowhere talking about marketing plan, and then we got Michael Croce telling me about products, and it is something that my dad recommended to Chuck many years ago. Now, a lot of talk show hosts do it. I just simply didn't have the time, didn't know where to go, and I don't have a big staff resource available to me. Now, I've spent a great deal of my savings building the studio, and then I've got some help from some friends that love the broadcast, but you got to support your family at the same time. And I always came up with some kind of bigger number thinking that, I got to raise the whole thing like some stations that I worked for in the past. And I'm like, let's see if we can consolidate this, slim this number down a little bit more to where it's just to be able to move this forward, get the show back launched again. And our number is $2,000. We're going to raise it. We know we can. I'm going to stay on the air nonstop until we do. And I'm asking you to please give something so we can get to that goal. ForThePeopleShow.com is where you can make that donation now. ForThePeopleShow.com. We're taking more calls. 813-423-8255. That's 813 area code 423-TALK. 813-423-TALK. And you can tell me what For the People means to you. It was really neat hearing from Michael Croce talking about, Chuck's program. Chuck, really pioneered talk radio. There's no doubt about it. And I became a part of Chuck's organization back in the 90s, and I was on the radio myself in Memphis doing a show for a big 50,000-watt radio station, and I was asked to come to White Springs, Florida. And I quit my job and went to work for Chuck, and my dad had put Chuck many years ago in the 80s, and I remember meeting Chuck as a kid for a brief time and then didn't really think much of it afterwards until he said, remember that guy that did the Consumer Advocate program? And I started working for Chuck and went through all the UAW stuff, working for Pat Shode and the union and saw the but I stayed with Chuck and My father passed away in 1995 of a heart attack, and Chuck became a benevolent father to me. And we became friends, and, since he's been in a nursing home and have had health challenges, I've been there for him, and vice versa. He's been there for me, and he asked me if I would come on the broadcast and get him relaunched, and 3 years ago we did. And we've had our challenges. Chuck, more than anything, health issues. Wanted to do a lot of things. Wanted to do a lot more himself with the radio show, with writing and with products and things like that. Things he was working on with his engineer, with Pulse Beam Radio, and none of those things were able to really flourish. So when Chuck had his final heart attack in Gainesville, and when I say final, hopefully it is the final one. His last heart attack, he had major heart surgery, and they believe they fixed him up for now, but he's in a nursing home, stable, bedridden, can't get out of bed, never will probably ever get out of bed or into a wheelchair or ever go outside, but he'll not be back on the air. And so Chuck said, please continue on with For the People. Chuck was the godfather, if you will, of the broadcast. So what I was hoping for, I suppose, is the original supporters would all jump to my aid and support the program. And several did, and many didn't. And that became a little discouraging, from day to day. But if that was not the business plan, of my program taking it over, what am I trying to say? Chuck did things a little differently than I did. And I wasn't Chuck, so I needed to have a new plan, another plan. And anyways, it just did not come soon enough. So I thought, maybe I call it a day and just get off the air and not do another radio show and see if there's any response from anybody, to see if anybody wants to write a check. And I said, one day maybe we'll be on another radio station. Maybe somebody will write us a check. Like Michael just said, a flagship radio station would be great. We have one in Ocala, sort of, but we don't do it from that station. And it's a small FM, and they broadcast all in Ocala, which is nice. But they carry our 2 hours on the radio station, which we're very grateful, along with several other affiliates in Kansas City, in Memphis, Tennessee, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, in Arizona, and Phoenix. And we appreciate the affiliates that carry our radio show. We really do. And the network, Liberty News Network, that does that, distributes the broadcast, opens it up for other stations to be able to carry the show. So we're going to change the business plan. I'm going to take the advice of Michael and do some products, run some advertising, and that should hopefully stimulate enough money to come in. But right now, I need to raise this $2,000 so we can get current on some of their bills here at For the People. So if you could make a donation of $10, $25, maybe you can write a bigger check today. I'd really appreciate that. ForThePeopleShow.com is our web address where you can press the donate button now. But like I say, this number will bring us current. I'll be able to relax, focus on just the show and building the broadcast going forward with products and trying to shop this thing around. It'd be nice locally somewhere in Florida to have a big station that we can, or a broadcast group that could take it and run. And maybe that'll be a reality, and it'll be so much easier to actually do the broadcast. Now, I've done radio shows for Salem Communications, Bot Radio Network. I've worked for Clear Channel. Never did a show on talk radio for Clear Channel here in the Bay Area. But there is a guy who we almost did a radio show in Orlando for WFLA, and Pat Campbell ended up taking a gig in Seattle or someplace out west, but he's very well known, and we became friends. But we were going to do a morning show together. We were going to team up, and we had really good synergy together. And but for whatever reason, he went his way, I went my way. But talk radio has definitely been in my blood for many, many years. And I have done talk radio for over 18 years of my life, and production, producing, and I have a voiceover company when I'm not on the air. and that's my secondary company. But this I could see doing way into retirement and, growing this thing out, doing it for a long time. I have a lot of energy, a lot of love for America, and certainly some great common sense that I think is so needed in our country more than ever. Is we see all the divisiveness in our country. There's just so many social issues that I think really cut into the social fabric of our country. And when it comes to the flag issue, the Star-Spangled Banner, it's such a sacred reminder for so many people that flag, that Star-Spangled Banner, that beautiful song that gives so many people goosebumps no matter how many times you do it. This is definitely a issue that needs to be resolved, and we'd like to see that resolve where all teams and schools do this without hesitation. It's just anti-patriotic. Can you imagine doing that in any other country, taking a knee to their Star-Spangled Banner? How do you think that most people in the country would react to that? How do you think? Yeah, in a lot of countries, they'd throw you in the brig, throw you in jail. Everybody, my rights, and I have a right to do it. What people forget, the reason you have those rights is because there were men that were courageous enough to get blown up. They got killed. They went against the king. You should learn about our escape from tyranny from England. You should read a little of history to know where we've come from. And if they really had that history in their mind, folks, they would not be doing what they're doing. You and I know that. And I don't think they would ever, if they knew the full brevity of what they did and how they did it and the sacrifices that were made in our country, they would never desecrate. They would not do these things. And I think a lot of folks are just operating under this modus operandi of the mainstream media. They're the ones that are propagandizing the airwaves. And our countermeasures for the people is to educate and try to detoxify the airwaves, to declutter it. There's so much garbage on the radio today. I listen to some of the programs and I say to myself, what a waste of airtime. Are you kidding me? This is supposed to be the public airwaves. This is supposed to educate. This is supposed to inspire people to be their best version of themselves so they can serve their country excellently. That's what a radio show should do. Not to bait people against each other, but to come together, unite people, to work with people. And this name, For the People, I don't take lightly. It's supposed to be the people's show. Folks, I love this country. And I love my family who served in the military. And for anybody that's ever served in the military or given 1 ounce of their life to this country in any way that have served, thank you. Whether you're a paramedic, you're a policeman, fireman, whoever you are that have served your country, thank you. And for you that have raised your kids to do the right thing, thank you. You've served your country. You've served your community. You know, sometimes you don't always have to serve in the military or being a policeman or doing those particular things, and they're all great things, but there's so many other ways you can serve. And one of the ways is to be up to speed on what's going on. And to me, it's something that every American should do to properly educate themselves and making sure that they get information that is benefiting and not destroying. You know, Chuck used to tell me, he said, young man, and I was in my 20s when Chuck said this, he said, you got to ask yourself a question before you make any decision. He said, will this help you or will this hurt you? I think if everybody would ask themselves that question regarding our country especially, we would have such a better place to live. Don't you agree? Folks, I'm asking you to please stand with me. This is the kind of stuff that I believe. This is the kind of stuff you'll hear on the broadcast. This is stuff that I bring.